Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Yasmine Mohammed podcast. Today, we have an incredibly special person with us today. We have Hamza. Hamza is a peace activist living in exile. He was born and raised in Gaza. He lived under the control of Hamas and was imprisoned by them when he participated in the We Want to Live protests. So today we're going to hear the truth about what it's like to live in Gaza, how dangerous it is to oppose Hamas publicly, and how Hamza feels about seeing university students in the West praising the terrorist group that imprisoned and tortured him. Welcome, welcome, Hamza.
Thank you, Yasmine. Thank you for having me.
It is my absolute honor and pleasure to have you on here. You are an incredibly brave man. Your voice is so important right now. I know that you're taking personal risks by speaking to me, by writing the articles that you've been writing and going on the media that you've been going on. I think that, it's hard for people in the West to understand exactly how big of a risk you're taking because they come from a completely different world. Like they don't understand what it's like for you, and I do. And so I really do appreciate you coming here and speaking to us. And I do want to speak a little bit about how grateful we should all feel that you're willing to put yourself out like this and have these conversations. Because I remember watching you in an interview where you were talking about how Hamas have even been threatening your family because of the fact that you are speaking up. So, I don't, there's no way to overestimate how grateful I am that you're here speaking to us. It's so, so, so important. When I tell people about these We Want to Live protests, they say it never happened. We never heard about it, because the media here didn't
Yeah.
cover it. So we really, really need your voice to tell us about the people in Gaza that are fighting against terrorism, that are wanting to have peace. All we're hearing is from the other side, but there's so many hundreds of thousands, if not, a million people like you, and we want to hear your side of the story. So let's start from the beginning. I want to know about what it was like for you growing up in Gaza. So what was your family like? What was your school like?
My father and the mother raised six children in their household. My father used to work as a technology consultant within and outside Gaza, and my mother was a housewife. Uh, My father was the first one who taught me about the Muslim Brotherhood ideology and how dangerous it could be, and to not be fooled by their slogans and their propaganda they produce like almost everywhere in Gaza. So he was the first teacher. And
That's great.
my brothers are like two of them study at the medicine school, two of them are engineers, so they are all away from the political situation and what the politics the politicians say. And my first school in Gaza was Dar al Arqam school. Dar al Arqam school is located near the Israeli border. So that's the road to the school that I can never forget. Taking the road to the school, seeing Hamas's masked men all the way, their checkpoints, their training camps, their slogans, almost everywhere. And
Wow.
in 2008, when the war started against Gaza, I was taking an exam in the school, and I remember when I saw the Israeli tanks coming towards Gaza. Everyone panicked and running for their lives, and I was like totally lost. I didn't know where to go. And a couple of years later, my father understood that it's dangerous to for me to be in a school close to the Israeli border. So I moved to Ionurwa school for 3 years, and I think everyone knows the problems within the educational system in the Ionurwa school. So I did not stay for too long. So
Tell us
I moved
just a
to
little bit about it, because the problem is that we get so much information, but also conflicting information all the time. And so that's why it's really important that you actually attended these schools. And so just tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about what it truly was like.
First of all, to be honest, they not help the Gazans, whether it was by with the education, the healthcare, and many poor families were dependent on the UNRWA. But on the
Of
other
course.
hand, they produced an endless problem within the Gazan society or the Palestinian society. They made the problem like they closed any solution to the problem. And my problem with the educational system, I understood the problem when I grew up because they were teaching us that Palestine is only for the Palestinians. There was never Jews. We own the land from the river to the sea. So I think that what makes it hard for the Palestinians even to acknowledge the Jews' right on this land with us. That was my first problem, and there are many teachers in the UNRWA schools who are known to be connected to Hamas and Fatah, by the way. People should understand how dangerous that could be. When the UNRWA problem arose during this war, I took a look at their conversations, the teachers in conversation on Telegram, and I was shocked because if this is the teacher, what do I expect from the students?
So the
It
teachers were
should
speaking in an extremist manner.
not only an extremist, they were cheering the raping and the killing of the Israeli civilians.
Oh, wow.
So it was like a really disgusting conversation. I can send you the link and you can take a look.
Oh my God. And then these are the ones that are teaching the little children of
Exactly.
Gaza, putting that poison in their minds. I was going to say the fact that your father protected you and spoke to you about Islamists, spoke to you about the Muslim Brotherhood, spoke to you about Hamas, and, encouraged you to use your mind and let you recognize how dangerous these groups are. That's huge because he inoculated you against the poison that they so easily put into the minds of all the children that are going to these schools who maybe their families didn't have the opportunity or the education, or maybe they're too scared. Or, what happens quite often with these Islamists is that in Egypt, we say "sima fil asal," right? The poison in the honey. They act
Yes.
like they are so good. They do so many good things. It's like you were saying, so many people rely on
Yes.
them for so many positive things. And so then they can also slip in their dangerous ideology. And it takes them sometimes years before they realize they're so deep in it. And by then, they already have power.
Yeah, and they work on the term named, I think you know it, at so
Yeah.
they can be like to keep their heads down until they have the power to do something. So this was taught in the mosques in Gaza. They were saying that publicly that we are like keeping our heads down until we have the opportunity and we have the power and we can do something then. So it's part of the ideology and they recognize it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It is.
yeah, after I finished my school, unfortunately, there is no much universities in Gaza. We are talking about three universities. So I went to the Islamic University of Gaza, or as I and many Gazans prefer to name it, the Hamas's biggest stronghold in Gaza because
Oh.
it's run and directed by Hamas. Their leaders, their members study there, and there they teach to hate not only the Jews or the Israelis, to hate the Christians, even to hate the secular Muslims. It was like a nightmare for me for 4 years to study there and to keep my head down. And until I managed and I graduated from the university, but I thought it would be like a better life after the university, but in fact it was worse.
Tell me how it was worse.
When I graduated from the university, I thought I was good at my field. I was the third at my college, so I thought that I would have a job, a good life to start building my future. I started applying for many jobs, but every single time I applied for a job in the public sector, I passed the interview, I passed the exam, and I got rejected every single time. and they do not hire anyone in the public sector jobs other than Hamas's members. So I was trapped. I want to work, but I can't find a job.
This is a
And
very important point. Thank you for bringing this up, Hamza, because this is the same thing that the Taliban do in Afghanistan too, where they make it so difficult. Like the unemployment rate in Gaza is so astronomically high, right? But like you said, the Hamas members, they're driving nice cars, they're living in nice apartments, they're living their life comfortably. And so what it's showing the youth, for someone like you graduating from university, you want to start your life, it's giving you the message that if you want to be prosperous, if you want to be successful, then this is your only route. The only route for you is to join Hamas, and then you're going to get all of these riches. But if you don't join Hamas, then they will continue to restrict you in every direction. Is that
exactly.
true? Yeah.
Yeah, they made the Gazan society as if it was like two layers: the wealthy elite, whom are Hamas and their members and supporters, and the remaining civilians in Gaza. I was looking at my friends who joined Hamas. Even my house is close to Ismail Haniya house in Gaza. It's like
Oh.
10 or 15 minutes. So I knew Ismail since I was a child, and I witnessed
Oh.
how he became richer more and more and more until he escaped Gaza and now lives in the Qatari hotels. I also witnessed that many of my friends who joined Hamas starting having cars, apartments, getting married, and I was like doing nothing. So
And
and from here, we want to live protest.
yes.
The idea started here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Tell us about that.
in 2019, the economical conditions of Gaza were like disastrous. People were upset of the conditions, so we started this idea to start a movement for the people. It's not connected to any political movement in Palestine. We did not even hire a leaders or point a leaders for this movement. And we started in 2019 demanding better living conditions, more jobs, and reconciliation between Hamas and Fatah. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, Hamas responded by sending their militias to us, beating everyone they managed to saw. They arrested as much as they could. And everyone was scared because they fired directly at us in the protest. So it disappeared from the streets in a minute, and the leaders and the known members were all arrested, and I was one of them in 2019.
Oh.
So I was arrested for 3 weeks the first time, and
Oh.
yeah, my family managed to pay a bribe for Hamas's officials. We paid like $3,000 to get me out of the jail. I managed to get out of the jail, but many couldn't.
That's a
And
lot of money. 3,000
yeah,
US
people,
dollars for people in Gaza, like that's almost impossible.
yeah, you are talking about a monthly salary of $400. So it was like a big money in Gaza. And many of those who went out of the jail, starting leaving Gaza, they never looked back because they lost the hope of making anything new of this condition to find a solution to our problems. And I remained silent for many years because my family was
Of
were
course.
like it's dangerous. But in 2023, I was like totally upset of them because they oppressed us more. And I participated in the protest I think couple of months before the war.
Yeah.
So you see, so we protested again, went to the streets, and they were more brutal this time. And many of those who were known to participate in the previous protest were like tortured for months. And again, and I was arrested on June. So
Oh my
my family
God.
went to collect money to pay the bribe again. And when they paid the bribe, they told me that either you should be silent or you should leave Gaza because it's not safe for anyone to criticize Hamas. Even I remember once time I wrote a post on Facebook 1 hour but after I wrote the post, the calls started. If you did not delete the post, you will be arrested.
Oh my God.
I did not say anything bad about them. I was just criticizing a policy. They imposed an extra tariffs on something imported from the Egyptian side, and I wrote a post about it. That was the only case, and they called, you should delete the post or you will be arrested.
Wow. So many things that you've described here are very similar to the Islamic regime of Iran. They do a lot, they use a lot of these similar tactics. Oh my God, Hamza, this is it's just, this is speaking from a woman who's had her own life traumas. Like I'm having trouble keeping it together because I'm terrified for you. I'm really, really grateful that you're sharing this with us now. Um, in those years, even in between 2019 and 2023, when you were quiet, it still wasn't good enough, though, right? Because you weren't a Hamas supporter. So even though you're staying silent, obviously you weren't still living happily. Otherwise, you wouldn't risk your
Exactly. Yes.
life and risk your family's, safety to go out there and protest again.
Yes. Exactly. Even if you did not, if you don't criticize Hamas, that's not enough. You should be either a member or a supporter to get a job and better life in Gaza. And I did not want to join these movements. I wanted to have a normal life like everyone,
Yeah, of
but
course.
it wasn't enough for them.
And how were you aware of how little attention your protests got on mainstream media in the West?
At the protests of 2019, it was somehow covered by some Arabic media, not all of them, because of course, but no, there was no Western media coverage. But on 2023 protests, it was even worse. No, not a single media covered the protest. And when I was in jail, I thought that everyone is talking about us, everyone is demanding our freedom or something. But when I went out, I noticed that no one knew that we were arrested by Hamas. No one knew that we were tortured. And I was like, I felt of betrayal. I felt that no, there is no solution in Gaza. I should go out. And that's why and what people don't know that there is like I think the statistics say that more than 300,000 Gazans left Gaza before the war.
Yeah.
So people can imagine how the people were running from Hamas.
Exactly. The war with, Israel didn't start yet. October 7th didn't start yet. Before that, people were running out of that country because they were running away from the terrorists that had taken over their homeland and was controlling them with an iron fist. I'm really grateful that you were able to get out. I can just imagine a lot of people in your position who are not maybe as strong in conviction would just join Hamas because it's like the only solution.
Yeah, unfortunately, many people felt in Hamas's traps. But personally, I believe that my family helped me, and I had like a specific experience because somehow I was radical, but thankfully I'm not anymore. But it's hard for any Gazan to avoid Hamas in Gaza. When you grow up seeing their propaganda from kindergarten and until you die, so it's like really hard. And the problem with Gaza is like you feel like you are culturally isolated from the outside world. You know nothing
Yeah,
other than Gaza. And that's what the Westerns don't understand about Gaza. We don't know your culture, your principles, even we don't know the human rights. It was like a dream
yeah,
for the Gazans. We never saw that.
yeah. And this is why I have to take you back to that feeling of betrayal because I was over here in the West. My father was living at that time, and he was a big peace activist. So he was making all of these videos about the We Want to Live protests. He's sharing them on YouTube, sharing them on Facebook. All he's getting is hate and anger, and people telling him that he is um, a Zionist entity. He's being paid by the Jews. He's da da da. Like he's being insulted by his family and his friends. this is his homeland. You know what I mean? He's trying to speak up for these young people who are on the streets risking their lives. But he's got a few followers on YouTube, a few followers on Facebook. He can't bring your voice to the public the way that the mainstream media could. And he had such frustration, such rage, such anger, such demoralizing, just sadness at how little any media cared, But if Israel does something, when Israel does something in Gaza, it's all over, splashed all over the front pages of everywhere. So it's very clear that the motivation isn't that you necessarily care about the people of Gaza. No, you care to point a finger at Israel. You know what I mean? That's what you care about. You care about saying, look at the bad Jews. But the Gazan people have been screaming under this terrorist regime for all of these years. We're talking about the suicide rates. We're talking about the treatment of women. We're talking about the unemployment rates. All of these things that you've been talking about, being imprisoned for daring to protest, not even speaking up against them, but just protesting for, we want to live. Like nothing could be more honest and pure and, like the lowest rung on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like we want to live, we want to breathe. That's all we want. We're not asking for the moon. We just want to
Yeah,
be able to live our lives.
and that was my problem with Al Jazeera because
Mhm.
it's the media that have many offices in Gaza. And when we protested in 2019, they did not cover that. In 2023, they did not cover that. And even when people protested during the war, demanding Hamas to surrender or to release the hostages more than once during the war in Gaza, they did not cover anything of it. So that's why I always say it's a hypocrisy. It's like they hate Israel and the Jews more than they love the Palestinians. It's not about us. It's not that they love us. If they love us, they would have protested in 2007 when Hamas killed more than 700 Palestinians to take control of Gaza. But we did not hear anything from them. Even when Hamas killed many children during this war to loot aid, no one talked. So it's only when it's about Israel, everyone is like pointing their fingers, starting to criticize. I have no problem. I personally, I have much criticism to Israel, but I'm not a hypocrite. I can
Mhm.
criticize both Hamas and Israel.
So because of this sense of feeling betrayed and demoralized and like there's no answer, there's no solution, I can't continue to live here. I can't keep
Mhm.
put my family at risk again. I can't protest anymore. I can't risk going to prison again. So you found the only solution was to leave Gaza. Um, so can you tell us a little bit about that process? Because I imagine it was
Yes.
not a simple one.
First of all, I went to Egypt through Rafah crossing, and as everyone knows, you should pay the price. And I took a flight to Turkey, and from Turkey to Greece with the death boats or the immigration boats. And I thought I would be safe in Greece, so I started writing my pieces to the Newsweek and other media. But I was threatened even inside Greece because I was surrounded by some radical Palestinians inside the
In
camp.
Greece.
Yeah,
Oh, you were in a
because
refugee camp, right?
I was in a refugee camp, and the camp was limited for the Palestinians. So
Mm.
and all of them were from Gaza. So it was like there was some extremists, and I thought that I should leave. So I left, and I came here to Germany, and I hope that it would be safe here because someone has to talk and to tell people the reality about Hamas because we are enough with that. We can't handle it anymore. 20 years with Hamas are enough.
Yeah, no, more than enough. So when that whole path that you described of leaving, just starting from the bribe in Egypt from the beginning, from the first step, let alone the flights and everything else, it sounds incredibly expensive and also incredibly dangerous. So the percentage of people from Gaza who want to escape is probably minuscule, right? Like there's probably a lot of people there that would love to get out if they could, but they just don't have the means.
Exactly. Every Gazan I talk to, from my friends, coworkers, and everyone I know from Gaza, I talk to. In the meantime, all of them, they want to escape, but they can't.
It's a really important point that I want to pause on for a second because something that I've been speaking about since October 7th, and I can't get my voice loud enough, is the way people make this assumption that everybody in Gaza supports Hamas. Now, they make this assumption because they say, but we can't hear them. We don't see them protesting. So why do they stay living there and making all of these, in my opinion, like really stupid arguments? Like it's so easy to see that when they speak up, they get imprisoned, they get tortured. So of course you're not going to hear their voices. And they say, oh,
It's
why
not
don't they
all.
leave? Where are they going to go? How are they going to leave? They just but this makes it, it's like it helps them to rationalize. I think, it's the same thing that they do with people in Iran. They say, oh, this is their culture, this is the way they want to live, this is their religion, this is their ideology, and then they can just sweep us under the rug. It's harder to admit that these people are suffering here, and it's just they want to turn a blind eye.
Yeah, but they should understand that it's not easy to criticize a regime like Hamas when there is a gun pointed to your head. When the Gazans protested during this war, Hamas fired directly, and I think more than 10 people were wounded. So it's not an easy job. Even the IDF is fighting against Hamas. We are talking now more than 7 months, and they couldn't defeat them.
Exactly.
Imagine if a
Yeah.
civilian started this, and to imagine their brutality. In a month, when they took over Gaza, they killed 700. So they don't have any problem with killing as much as they can to silence the people. It's not a problem for them.
Yeah. I saw videos too of how brutally they treat gay people in Gaza as well. Because what's very common here in the West is you have queers for Palestine, gays for Palestine, and they're not understanding that if you were gay in Gaza, you would be killed. Like, how do you think supporting this terrorist organization because you're LGBT, it's exactly the opposite. This terrorist organization would have you killed for being
Uh,
LGBT.
there was a commander in Al-Qassam brigades. His name was Mahmoud Shtawi. Mahmoud Shtawi was a commander in Al-Qassam, but he was gay. They should know that what Hamas did to him. He was tortured for more than 1 year, and when they finished, they killed him. And there is a video for his mother talking about what happened to him. He was tortured for more than 1 year, and even his family couldn't see him for this period. And I remember there was when I was a child, I was like 11, I think. There was another guy who was thrown from a roof. So we are talking about like it's an ISIS, but with a good public relations. I love that they support Palestine, but they should understand how to show their support. If their support was for the civilians, I really appreciate it. But if it was for Hamas, then you are not supporting the Palestinians. In fact, you are supporting the regime that oppressed the Palestinians.
They don't under there's that they don't have a distinction there. This is the biggest problem, is both people on the right and on the left like to pretend that Gaza and Hamas are the same thing. So the people on the left think that Gaza and Hamas are the same thing. So they think when we support Hamas, we are supporting the freedom fighters of the Gazan people. That's what they think, right? And then people on the right will say all of them, everybody in Gaza is Hamas. So bomb them all, kill them all. It doesn't matter because they're all terrorists. So both sides are not making a distinction.
I don't I don't get it how they can support a regime that his ideology is built on killing more than 6 million Jews. How they can support something like that? Even if it was not for the Jews, they are against the secular Muslims, they are against the Christians, the atheists. So you are talking about something worse than ISIS. How they can support that, even if it was for the Palestinians? That's not the right way. There are more better ways. You can pressure your government to get the Palestinians and the Israelis together to reach a reconciliation. But supporting a regime like that, that only means that you don't want to see an end to this conflict. You only want it to continue until something worse than October might happen.
I entirely agree with you. So you recently deleted some tweets and some Instagram posts, and there was a lot of discussion around that. A lot of people were really, trying to come up with ideas like what happened? Why did Hamza do this? What's going on? So why don't you talk to us about that decision?
I believe in everything I wrote and the videos I made, but unfortunately, there was some journalists from Gaza who took this stuff and they used it in the wrong time. For example, they used the video where I apologized for the Israelis for what happened on October the 7th. And I believe everyone should apologize for that. But they used it in a time where there was a massacre in Gaza. So people misunderstood that I am against the civilians in Gaza. And the problem is that both of those journalists were like the most famous journalists in Gaza. One of them is in Europe right now, and one of them is still in Gaza. But people started attacking my family, threatening them, harassing them, even they are out of Gaza, but it was like a non-stopping attack. So I had to do something because my first and foremost priority remains to my family.
Absolutely.
The, the,
And these
yeah,
malicious, lying, duplicitous monsters that did this knew what kind of danger they would be putting you and everyone in your family in if they did this, yet they still chose to do it.
exactly. And one of them, his Mu'taz Aziz. I don't know if that's possible to publish or not, but I don't remember exactly what he wrote, but he was like, no one should apologize for October the 7th.
Oh
I
boy.
was shocked by this mentality. I was shocked because you know what happened, and there are some suspicions about him. But believing that this should not be that I should not apologize for these atrocities,
That's a
I was
beyond a
really shocked
suspicion
by his
now.
response.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very clearly a very dangerous person, a very disgusting person with a poisoned mind that would say something like that.
My first reply to him was, how you felt when you saw some supporters of Hamas or their members celebrating October the 7th? Didn't that hurt your feelings? And he was like, no.
The issue with the anti-Semitism in the Arab and Muslim communities is a very big problem. It is so big that it's normalized. It's not even recognized as a problem. Excuse me. It's just the way it is, it's just normal. Like when somebody says something about, Yahud, nobody goes, oh, or anything, like it's of course, this is how you talk, right? But of course, in America, if you say something about the Jews or the Black people or, the Latinos or something, you're going to have people respond because racism is not so normalized in the West. Now, this is the thing here is that I honestly have found that the people in Gaza and even in the West Bank that have had interactions with Jewish people that have worked in Israel or maybe they've, whatever, they've had interactions, they are less anti-Semitic than the people in countries like Egypt and Pakistan who have never met a Jewish person in their life. They have like an image in their head of Jewish people being this non-human thing. So that when the atrocities of October 7th happened, and I was getting, WhatsApp messages from, how there's always those groups and people celebrating and like they don't even it doesn't even register in their minds that these are human beings. They just think of them as I don't know, just a thing. a thing that needs to be eradicated, a thing that needs to be killed. How prevalent is that mindset in Gaza and in your experience?
Uh, I think that to some extent there is anti-Semitism, whether it was like a direct or indirect anti-Semitism. And the problem with that, I blame the educational system for that, because if someone needs to learn about the Holocaust, it's us, because we live with the Jews. But
Mhm.
our history books, everything ignores what happened. And if you talk to many Gazans, they don't even know what happened. They didn't even
Mhm.
know what the Nazis were. Or I personally, I didn't know until I
Mhm.
was like 17. So I think it's important for the new Palestinian Authority, or whatever the body that will govern Gaza, to teach the people about what happened to the Jews, so we can understand their suffering, we can understand their history, and
Because we can see them as
the
humans.
exactly. And personally, I believed in many delusions about the Jews and the people of Israel. I even was feeling afraid if I saw an Israeli flag, until I started
Mm.
meeting these people and talking to them, to figure out that they are people like us. They have the good people, they have some extremists, they are normal people. But uh, the, the the most dangerous thing about the anti-Semitism is in Gaza, because it's fitted with the religion, with the
Yeah.
teaching the radical Islam to be against the Jews, and the Gazan society is known to be a religious society. So Hamas used to produce this propaganda in the mosques to blame everything on the Jews. Everything happens, and they produced some the anti-Semitism to some extent. But yes, I agree with you. It's lower than the case on the West or in America.
Yeah. You know, I had a friend from Saudi who told me that when he went to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., he said, I entered the doors one man and I came out the doors another man. It completely changed him. He said, because I never in my life imagined that a Jewish person could be a victim, that a Jewish person could be oppressed. They just, his whole life, he was fed this indoctrination that they are this big, strong, evil entity that just want to cause chaos in the world. And he just couldn't believe, like, what looking in the museum and or in the memorial and seeing everything, it just completely blew his mind.
Yeah, yeah. I also remember that I had a friend in Gaza. Before the war, Israel allowed more than 20,000 workers to go and work inside Israel, and he was one of them. And when he went back from Israel, he was happy, because he told me that they gave us our rights. We don't have our rights in Gaza. He was happy because he paid well. He have the his insurance, and he told me that the people in the kibbutzim were helping him, and he was shocked because of that. That's why I believe that more dialogue, more interaction between the people of Israel and the Palestinians is necessary.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And that brings me to my final question, which is a difficult one. How do you see this ending? Like what do you think is missing from the conversation right now? Obviously, the biggest problem is that the people of Gaza are stuck in between the bombs from IDF and in between the bullets from Hamas. How do you see that? What is in a perfect world, if you had a magic wand, how do you hope to see this um, not end, but begin?
I always say that if someone should deal with the cancer named Hamas, it should be the Palestinian Authority, not the IDF, because I think that that's the only way that we can minimize the civilian casualties, because there is support for the Palestinian Authority in Gaza. They know
Mhm.
Gaza, they know how to defeat Hamas in Gaza. But to be honest, I don't think that are interested in doing so. They want the easy solution when they can like control Gaza, start the corruption over and over again. I don't have a magic solution for that, but I believe that maybe a reformed Palestinian Authority with the assistance of the United Nations and the Arab countries might somehow downsize this scale of violence and hatred. I'm not expecting it to disappear to be solved in a night, but I think that it can be downsized to a manageable level. No one expected the Emirates, the UAE to be in this way. It was like a radical country, and now we look at it. Even the Jews say that it's safer for them to walk in the Emirates. So I think it can be managed, but we lack the proper body that can really do that. That is interested in helping the Palestinians, not to benefit from their suffering.
Like that's exactly it. That's exactly it. Palestinians are always used as a pawn to support somebody else's power play. And there's never been a leadership that actually cared about the Palestinian people, but it's about using the Palestinian cause for whatever narrative that they're pushing in whatever direction. I absolutely agree with what you were saying. And your example about the UAE is an important one because in Arab societies, we're top down. You can't do this grassroots. This has to be top down. The leadership has to say, okay, we're going to be bringing in fruits and vegetables from Israel now. You're going to see Israeli flags in the supermarkets. We're going to have normalized relations. We're going to actually have positive relationships. We're going to sing the Israeli national anthem. We're gonna, you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
has to be top down, and the people will follow. Because that's just the way these societies are run. It's not the West, where it's like democracy. No, it has to be top down, and the people with power at the top find that controlling this or creating this Israel versus Palestine, it's just too lucrative. Having peace is not lucrative in their calculation, right? Because they don't care about the freedom and the support and the happiness and the health of the Palestinian people. But they're thinking, look at the billions of dollars I can get every time, there's a bomb comes from Israel. Look how much sympathy we can get. And from that sympathy, look how much money we can get. And then they look at it in that way. They're not looking at it in terms of what is best for the Palestinian people. They're looking at it in terms of what is best for my power.
Exactly, and I think that the new governing body of Gaza should invest on that. I think that the new governing body of Gaza should at least close the pay for slave program that we pay like tens of millions annually to those who kill Israelis, whether they were civilians or not. We can invest this money to start a dialogue between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and that will benefit us on the long term way more than the current program benefits anyone. So they have the necessary money, and they know that the proper way, but I don't think that there is anyone among them interested in solving this. So that's why I always say that this Palestinian Authority should be reformed.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's not in their best interest to solve this problem. It's in their best interest to keep it going. I'm going to ask you about one thing that I didn't write in the questions, but it's something that I just thought about because I think it's an important point when we start talking about having Jewish, or Israeli people and Palestinian people sitting together to, talk about a brighter future in that area of the world. Part of the problem is there's such a belief that the Jews want us dead. The Jews hate us. The Jews don't care about us. The Jews don't want us to live. And so there's such a distrust from sitting down and having that conversation. And even if they did start to find a way to see eye to eye, they'd say, well, we don't believe them because the Jews are duplicitous. The Jews are malicious. The Jews are lying to us now. You know what I mean? So it really just shuts down any hope for having that dialogue. Um, and what I want to somehow convey to these people is let's look at the reality on the ground. Let's look at the lives of Palestinian people. Let's look at how they're treated in Lebanon, for example. Let's look at how we are treated by our fellow Arab citizens. Look where when you go and you work in Israel, you talked about your friend. He goes and he works in Israel. What does he get? He gets all his human rights. He gets his check on time. You know what I mean? He gets treated like a human being. What happens when you go work in Saudi Arabia? What happens when you go work in Qatar? What happens when you go
We,
work in any of these oil-rich countries from
we are
Arabs,
not allowed. We are not allowed. We are not
If
allowed.
you're There you go. You're not even allowed. And if you were allowed, you're treated like dirt. Because, like, my grandfather worked in Saudi Arabia for so many years, and he was always treated like dirt. They have such a disdain for Palestinian people. And when my grandfather died, because of course it doesn't matter how long you've worked there or how many buildings you own or how many businesses you own, you're never a Saudi and you never own anything. So his Saudi partners always owned 51% of all of his things. And when my grandfather passed away, my grandmother got nothing. So this is the Ummah. This is your Arab brothers. This is what they do, right? They left my grandmother with nothing when my grandfather died because, of course, the Saudi owned everything, right? So it's weird that we still have this belief that, oh, it's our Arab Ummah or our Muslim Ummah. They're the ones that protect us and care about us. But it's these horrible Jews. They want nothing but our destruction. But the reality is not that. That's not what you're seeing here. You're seeing when people go work in Israel that they are being treated with a respect that they don't get in their own home countries, right? And when you go work in an Arab countries, that's where you get treated like, you know what they used to call my mom is from Egypt, and she told me never tell anybody in abuki Filistini that your father is Palestinian. And I was like, why not? Because I always say I'm half Egyptian, half Palestinian. This is my natural answer because I'm born and raised in Canada, and this is just my culture. She says, no, because dol shahatin, they are the beggars of the Middle East. That's what she said. That's how people see them. So we don't want people to treat you badly if they find out that your father is Palestinian. This is how we're treated by the Ummah.
Even as a Gazan, I'm not allowed to work anymore in the Saudi Arabia. That was the case since the assassination of Al Mabhouh, I remember. So we are expelled. We are appointed from these Arab countries, and they know that. But everyone prefers to launder their dirty clothes with Israel. So it starts with Israel. I don't
Always,
say that
everything's Israel.
Israel is a perfect country. By the way,
Of course
it
not.
has
There's no such thing as a perfect
their
country.
problems. Yeah, but we can work with that. We can fix that together. If we invested that in our educational system, in our schools, mosques, universities, we can make a change. It won't happen in a night, but it can happen. It can happen on the long term. If it was not for us, at least for our children or the next generation.
See, that's my hope. If I had a magic wand, I would put you and people like you in the new leadership of Palestine. Now, I know West Bank and Gaza, I feel like are two completely almost like separate countries, like they're so different in so many ways, culturally and in so many ways. But it's going to be a difficult job for any one leadership to manage both of these areas. So I've honestly talked about like we need a three-state solution because two states isn't hard enough. Let's try three states. But I think that's probably, the most reasonable thing right now. And I would love to see people like you and the people who are all sharing their stories in, Whispers from Gaza or Voices from Gaza, it's called now. And you can hear that there are so many young people that are just true liberal thinkers, true critical thinkers, the kind of people that you just hope would get the leadership of these areas of land, and then we can lead our people to prosperity. But you also know that those are the people that are suffering the most, unfortunately, with the situation that it is right now. But that's what I would do with my magic wand, is I would put you in a position where you would be the leadership of the new Palestine.
I hope so. I'm honest about it. I'm not feeling comfortable here in Europe. I want to go back to Gaza, but with the current
It's your
situation,
home.
I think it's impossible. Yes, I hope that the new government governing body would have the same thoughts, because the problem with them is that they want to keep the corruption situation. They don't want that to change. Even when they started a new government right now, when I asked about the new prime minister, everyone I asked, he said this guy is a corrupt. He's known for corruption.
Hmm.
So they want to keep this corruption state. And
Hmm.
the problem is that even the Arabic media is not helping. They do not even have anyone believes in peace on their shows. I was rejected by almost all the Arabic media. On the other hand, the Western media, many of them invited me, and I was shocked because they are interested in only on showing the extremists to somehow show a different picture about Gaza, or something different from the reality of Gaza. The people who believe in peace exist, but we don't have any opportunity to show ourselves. That's why I continue to do more interviews, to write more pieces, because I want people to remember that there are civilians in Gaza.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Hamza. And we could not appreciate you more. Uh, except for Sam Harris, more people have signed up for this podcast than I have in any of my podcasts in the past. So you have a abundance of supporters from all around the world. And, we are 100% behind you. One thing we don't talk about is how difficult it is for you to be leaving your homeland and living in Germany now. Like, yes, you're free, you're safe, your body is safe, but completely different language, completely different culture, completely different weather, completely different food. Like it's a trauma. It's a shock to your system, and how your heart must bleed when you're seeing what's happening in your home and you're so far away too, and how helpless you must feel in this time. But what you're doing is incredibly important. You are a vital, vital voice. You are bringing light to such darkness. You are proving these people on the right and the left that think that Gaza and Hamas are the same thing. You're proving them both wrong by showing yourself, by very, very bravely showing yourself and speaking up for these civilians in Gaza. And I cannot thank you enough. I commend you. I appreciate you. I honor you. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Hamza.
And I also want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to deliver my message. And I hope that maybe when the war ends, more Gazans will start to speak. And I'm sure about that. And the West will listen more about the from the Gazans. So I really appreciate that you gave me the opportunity, and I also appreciate the work you have done, because I saw many great interviews. I saw the interview with Ahmed Khatib and everyone. So I really appreciate what you are doing.
Thank you. So together we'll do our best to try and change the narrative. And yeah, and I'm very grateful to you. There's no underestimating how much more difficult it is for you than it is for me. And I'll never forget that. I'm really, really grateful to you. So thank you again, Hamza. And well, this is not the last time we're going to speak. We're going to continue this conversation, and soon I'm going to be seeing you on all of the billboards and headlines as the new leader of Gaza,
I hope so. Thank you, Yasmin.
inshallah.
After hearing all that, you might be left wondering, what can I do? How can I help? Well, this is why I created a nonprofit called Free Hearts, Free Minds. We are the only organization dedicated exclusively to helping these free thinkers. We empower them with our programs and supportive community, lifting them up so they can heal, speak out, and begin to make positive changes, not just in their own lives, but within the broader community around them. If this is a cause that resonates with you and you want to make a difference, one way to do that is by donating to Free Hearts, Free Minds. Because not enough people care about this cause, we need people like you to help fuel this change. You can donate via our website, freeheartsfreeminds.com. Thank you. Every dollar you donate makes a difference.